You know, I had an introduction, but I want to change it. Because while we were worshiping, I felt like God spoke to me. And I'd recently been reading this verse, and it goes something like, when God speaks to you in the dark, share it in the light. And I've been waiting on God for something for a long time now. And he told me something. He said, today's the day. Today's the day. Do you want to claim that with me this morning? Can we give it up to God this morning? Come on, keep it going. Keep it going. Today, somebody's life could be changed. Somebody's house could be changed. Somebody's family tree could be changed this morning. Come on. Today's the day. All right. Maybe I'm not supposed to be preaching yet. I don't know. But a few weeks ago, my dad said, you know, Jared, I would love to have you preach. And I was like, Dad, I'd love to preach, you know? And I said, what do you got coming up? And he said, well, we're doing a marriage series in June. And I said, perfect. Which week am I doing? And I don't know why everybody's laughing. I would have killed it. I don't know why everybody's laughing. We had a scheduling conflict. That didn't work out. But he said, hey, in July, we're doing a 10 Commandment series. And I said, great. Which commandment do you want me to be doing? And he said, how about commandment number 5? And I said, commandment number 5? No way. That's like my favorite one, Dad. So I go home. I open my Bible, and I'm like, which one's number 5? Because I had no idea. I get to Exodus 20, I'm like, 1, 2. I get like, you shall have no other gods before me. Don't murder. I'm like, these are great. I go like, 1, 2, 5. Here it is. And I read it out loud. And I'm like, honor thy father and mother. My father wants me to preach on honoring thy father and mother. And I'm going to honor him while I do it, Because at first, when he gave that to me, I was like, I guess my dad wants me to learn how to honor my father and mother. All right. But then I realized something. Now, he didn't tell me this, but I realized what he meant. He didn't say this, but I knew that he meant that I actually do such a great job at it that he wanted me to give my tips and secrets so that everyone else can honor their father and their mother. So, no, hey, I'm just having fun. You can have fun in a 10 Commandments series, right? Is that okay? Yeah? All right. All right. But when I was looking at the commandments and I was like, what do I talk about? What do I preach about? I found a lot of depth, and I found a great message actually in the context. And so I want to call this part of the message, we're going to call it the context of the commandments. All right? Because we look at the Israelites, that's who they were given to. Let's kind of look at a broader historical context. You see, they spend a large part of their history enslaved in Egypt. And then Moses comes and he brings them out, right? And so then they're wandering through the wilderness now. And God says, listen, you saw how the Egyptians did it, right? You saw what they did. You've heard about what all these other cultures are doing. But I want you to be my chosen people. I want you to live differently from how everyone else is doing it. And so he gave them these 10 commandments because he said, I don't want you to be like all the other nations and cultures and civilizations in the world. No, I want you to be my people. So he gave them these 10 commandments, the ones that we're talking about today, in the series titled The Code. The Code. I love that series name. I couldn't tell you why. I think it's so cool. I love the intro video with all the, the computer code going around. And I'm sure when you see that, you probably look at it like that's a foreign language. And it kind of is. It's English words and numbers, but they go together in such a weird way. And I was looking into code recently, and I'm not going to get too in-depth into it, but I want to say one thing about computer code that I think is really important for this morning. You see, the computer code is what goes on inside the background of, say, your phone, for example. Like everyone's phone has a calculator app, right? And when you hit the buttons, you hit 1 + 1 = 2, right? And there you go. It's as simple as that. But what's going on in the background with the code, right, the computer code, what's actually saying is, okay, we're going to take this value. What are we going to do? We're going to add it. Okay, we're going to take a second value. Here's the second value. We're going to take the first value, add it to the second value. We're going to give you a number, right? And that sounds really complicated. And that's what the phone is actually doing in the background, right? The code is what tells your phone how to run. And if you didn't get any of that, that's fine. Forget it. Here's what's important to remember. It's that all code is written for a reason. All code is written for a reason. Does that make sense so far? All right. And when I was reading through the Bible, I found something interesting. You see, we think that computer code is just in our tablets and our computers and our phones, right? But what if I told you that humans are coded too? Well, I was looking at a verse in Psalms 139. We should have it on the screen. And it goes something like this. For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. And we read that and we think, how does that make sense? Let me break it down a little bit. Specifically focusing on that bottom line. You knit me together in my mother's womb. And I read that first part. It says, you knit me together. And I like to think what that means is that God created with intention, right? He wasn't just throwing stuff at a wall, seeing what stuck. He created with intention. You knit me together. And it says, from my mother's womb. And so I like to think that he created us with intention in our mother's womb. So from a cellular level, that's the intricacy that God designed us with. And Lord forbid a homeschooler steps up here and teaches about cells. But I know one thing about them, one thing about cells. And it's that cells have this thing called DNA. And the DNA is what tells the cell how to function, right? And there's so much information in a single strand of DNA. When I was reading in a textbook back like 5 years ago, I read, it stated it like this, that the DNA codes for the cell. I thought that was interesting. So I thought, wait a second, humans are coded. Now think of it like this. I could go home and I could code an app right now. You would click one button, it would take you to like a white screen, it wouldn't do anything else, and it probably wouldn't even work to do that. But you were coded and put together by God. You're probably sitting there thinking, well, Jared, I've been taking notes. First, I'll thank you. Second off, earlier you said that all code is written for a reason. Therefore, if we were coded, then Jared, what exactly is the reason for it? What exactly is my purpose for being here? Because if all code is written and created to fulfill a purpose, like the calculator app, so that you can make calculations from your phone, surely the reason and the purpose that you were created was for something. Something much greater than making calculations on a phone. And you might be sitting there thinking, okay, so then what is it, Jared? That's great, but what is it? You're doing great in the motivation department. Now just, give us something else. I got nothing else for you. I can't sit down with every individual and say, this is your reason for being here. But, before I lose you, I might have a story that could help. Would that be okay if I share a story? All right. I'd like to call this the parable of the dishwasher. Oh, yeah. And I'm not talking like some like 17-year-old boy who was hired in a kitchen to wash dishes. No, I'm talking like your appliance that you have in your kitchen right now, the dishwasher. I'm going to tell a parable about that. Because one day, let's picture your dishwasher. It's sprouted legs. Legs. Boom. And it gets up, and it walks out of your house. And it starts going through the town. It's taking in all these great sights, all these new experiences that it's never had before. And so all of a sudden it looks down. And it sees, oh no, it's getting low on power. He said, I got to find power somewhere. So he starts looking around. And he sees a bunch of people in the distance. And he reads the sign. It says, an apple orchard. And he says, great, maybe I can find some power in the apple orchard. So he runs over to the apple orchard. But the only thing that he can find is apples. Yeah. And so he tries the apples, and they give him no power. So he walks out. Now he's even lower on power. He's like, I really got to find something. He sees a bunch of people in the distance at the ice cream shop. Great. And he tries the ice cream shop, but the only thing he can find in the ice cream shop is ice cream. That's right. And he tries the ice cream, but there's no more power. And so he's like, okay, now I'm really low on power. And he starts looking around frantically. He's trying to find it. Then he sees off in the distance, well, darkness. Because he ran out of power. And so he laid there for a few hours until a man comes driving by the side of the road in his pickup, picks up the dishwasher, and he throws him in, takes him home, plugs him in. And he makes sure to tell the dishwasher something before he leaves. He says, hey, if you're looking for power and you want to find power, you have to get it from the source. And you may be thinking, I'm not a dishwasher. What does that mean? Well, if we're looking for our purpose, just like the dishwasher was looking for his power, it's the same thing. If we want to find our purpose, if we want to find the reason that we were written, then we have to get it from the source. We have to get it from the person who wrote us. We have to get it from the person who gave us that purpose originally. So if we want to find our purpose, we must get it from the source. And it's so easy just to talk to God, and He just gives it to you, and you walk away feeling fulfilled and satisfied. Not really. No, not really. You may be thinking like, it sounds great, but it's not really how it works, Jared. And to be fair, yeah, I'll give it to you. Because as we go throughout our lives, we walk around the town and we see all these new experiences. And then we realize, wait a second, I need a purpose for me being on this planet. And so we look around and we see what everyone else is trying. And so then we try to go to the apple orchards of career and just trying to get more money on the next paycheck. But as soon as we climb the corporate ladder, we walk out thinking, no, that didn't fulfill me. That can't be my reason for being here. There has to be something else. There has to be something more. And so we keep looking. We find the ice cream shops of social approval and Instagram likes or Facebook likes from my 60-plus crowd. I don't know what you're going for. And we try it, and then we walk out, and we still can't find our purpose. And so we keep looking around. Where can I find purpose? Where can I find the reason that I was written? To be fair, it is really, really hard. Because we spend our entire lives with the culture hammering down, just get more money on the next paycheck, just get more followers on Instagram. And their values are so heavily just compounded into us. And so much so that it even goes and it drives right into our households, and the culture starts dictating what goes on inside of our households. But wait. What if I told you that the verse that we're looking at today was written specifically so that wouldn't be the case? A lot of you are sitting there thinking, what's he talking about? Wow. For those of y'all who didn't pull it up on your phones or Bibles already, I may or may not have been hiding something. Oh no. How about we take a look at the verse in question, but this time let's put up the whole verse. Exodus 20, verse 12. Honor your father and your mother, so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you. Some of y'all are sitting there like, oh no. I'm up here like, oh, yeah. So let's take a look at this verse here, because what let's look at the structure of it, because it's split into a part 1 and a part 2, and then there's a small kind of bridge connecting the two. Let me show you what I mean. Here's part 1, honor your father and your mother. That's part 1. And you can take that at face value, sure, and you can just keep reading. But let's look at that. Honor your father and your mother. What it's really saying is, here is a structure for your household, right? Here's a structure for your household. And in order for you to build a structure of your household, it must be built on some kind of foundation. And if you want to have a solid structure in your household, it must be built on a firm foundation of values. How about that for a Sunday morning message right there? But that's only part 1. Let's keep reading. So that. Here's what so that means. It's a bridge connecting part 1 and part 2, saying if you do part 1, then part 2 will happen. Do part 1, so that part 2. Let's look at part 2. So that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you. And we read that, and it's one of those Old Testament like phrases that you can just skim right over and just ignore and think, yeah, it's just some of that Bible lingo, whatever. But look at it. So that you may live long in the land that God gave you. What it's saying is you will have a prosperous society, right? Because in times like this, if you didn't have a prosperous society, another nation would come and kick you out, right? So it's saying if you want to live long in this land, it's saying you must have a prosperous society. So let's take that meaning and reapply it. Honor your father and mother. Implement this structure inside of your household so that you may have a prosperous society. You see, what it wants to do is paint a connection between what goes on inside your house and what happens in the society. Or I can simplify it, or I can say it like this. It's trying to paint a connection between your house and the culture. Does that make sense? You still with me? We still awake? Still alive? Wake, alive, alert, enthusiastic? All right. We already talked a lot about how the culture can impact the household, right? Because as we're looking for our purpose, the only thing that we can find is what everyone else is doing. And so that becomes so ingrained in here, and it comes out in our household. But what we don't realize is that our household can also impact the culture. You might be sitting there thinking, well, that's a great message, but if I start making changes in my house, it's not like it's going to change the world or change our culture. Yeah, maybe not. But I did just think it was interesting how if you look at the household, and in recent years, it's become more and more of a place of higher divorce and greater division. And then you look at our country, and what do you see? And you look at our household and how people start to focus on their paychecks rather than the human beings around them. And then you look at our country, and what do you see? And how the household people have walked into arguments trying to get their point across instead of understanding what's coming at them. And then you look at our country, and what do you see? In recent years in the household, even praying before meals has left as a tradition. And then we marvel at how God has left the culture. We let God leave our dinner tables, and then we blame the culture. But I don't want to leave this on a grim note, because that right there is not a grim verse. You see, what it's trying to say is that the house can affect the culture can affect the house. It's just a matter of who's being more intentional about it. That's right. And so we, as the church, need to start being intentional. Because if we go home and we start saying, you know what, instead of worrying about work while I'm at home, I'm going to start focusing on my kids. Instead of trying to get my point across in this argument, I'm going to try to figure out what they're saying to me. You know what? Instead of diving right into the food, how about I take a stand and say that I know our bodies need this food, but I know even more our spirits need God. And as for me and my house, we will be a house that serves the Lord. Yeah, we're going to take those 30 seconds and pray before our food. If we can institute these changes inside of our households, what's going to happen to the culture? Because like I said, the house can affect the culture. It's just a matter of who's being more intentional, ladies and gentlemen. Can we bring God back to the dinner tables? Can we take a stand this morning and say, as for me and my house, we serve the Lord? Because as I said before, if you want to have a solid family structure, it must be built on a firm foundation of values. What values are you going to build your foundation out of? Because there's a lot of them coming from the outside. But there's much better ones coming from the Word of God. Ladies and gentlemen, our houses can change the society and culture around us. Let me go back to the beginning. My word from God was today's the day. If we want to change the culture and the society that we see around us, it has to start under our roofs.